Dive into today's top stories, including President Trump and Paramount Global attempting to resolve his $20 billion lawsuit against the company through mediation. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also talk with Harris County GOP Vice Chair Kyle Scott, who joins us to discuss the Republican opposition to the big, beautiful bill, Elon Musk leaving the Trump administration, and much more.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, author Laura Ingalls will tell us about his new projects and his association with the famous family that his ancestor, Laura Ingalls Wilder, wrote about in her Little House on the Prairie books.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, your questions, and concerns. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump travels today to the Steel City, Pittsburgh, to publicly support a merger he had previously vowed to fight: foreign control of U.S. steel. The Biden administration opposed Nippon's acquisition bid. So did President Trump. That was before he returned to office. NPR's Tamara Keefe says Trump's striking a different tone today.
A major theme of the first few months of his second term has been bringing foreign investment to the U.S., onshoring manufacturing, creating American jobs. And there are a few things that he relishes more than announcing a deal. Pennsylvania, of course, is also a state that delivered him the presidency, so he's going to call it a win.
NPR's Tamara Keith reporting. A federal appeals court says the president can temporarily continue with his sweeping tariffs on U.S. imports. The ruling came a day after the Court of International Trade in New York ruled against Trump, saying he exceeded his authority when he enacted the levies. NPR's Maria Aspen reports on what some economists are saying about tariffs and the U.S. economy.
Top executives at Goldman Sachs gathered to discuss the markets, the financial industry, and the broader economy. Speaking hours after a federal trade court blocked the tariffs, Goldman's chief economist, Jan Hatzius, said he's still worried about damage to the U.S. economy. Goldman currently predicts that the country has a 35% chance of tipping into a recession within the next year.
We don't think this court decision really makes a major difference. The president loves tariffs.
Hatzius says he expects Trump to continue looking for ways to impose the tariffs. Hours later, an appeals court gave them a temporary green light again. Maria Aspen, NPR News, Dana Point, California.
The New York Times and Amazon say they have agreed to a licensing deal. NPR's John Ruwitch reports it allows the tech company to access the newspaper's editorial content for uses related to artificial intelligence.
The multi-year deal will bring New York Times editorial content, including from the newspaper, NYT Cooking, and The Athletic, to a variety of Amazon customer experiences. A statement from the New York Times says that includes real-time displays of Times content within Amazon products and services, such as Alexa. It'll also be used to train Amazon's AI models. The Times reports that this is the first licensing arrangement it's entered with a focus on generative AI. In 2023, the company sued OpenAI, which operates the popular chatbot ChatGPT. Times says OpenAI used its content without permission to train the chatbot. The Times also sued Microsoft, which is OpenAI's biggest investor. OpenAI leaders have argued that its mass collection of data, including from the New York Times, is protected by fair use rules. John Ruwitch, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. Houston Mayor John Whitmire says City Council can't finalize his proposed $7 billion budget until a court makes a final decision in a pivotal case concerning spending on streets and drainage. He's asking the court to approve a contentious settlement by the end of the week. News 88.7's Dominic Anthony Walsh says the case has been a headache for the city as it approaches the deadline to approve a budget.
The lawsuit goes back to 2019, when plaintiffs argued the city shortchanged voter-approved funding for streets and drainage. Mayor John Whitmire reached a settlement with the plaintiffs in April, but a judge has not signed off just yet. Without approval, the city faces a more than $180 million expense over the next year. Ben Hirsch is with advocacy group West Street Recovery, which this week asked the court to deny the settlement.
It's really not guaranteed that the settlement is approved, and the city's current budget acts as if it's a guarantee.
Whitmire and City Council filed a motion on Wednesday urging the judge to make a decision by the end of the week, saying the budget cannot be finalized until the case is resolved. I'm Dominic Anthony Walsh, News 88.7.
A collection of civil liberties organizations say they'll sue Texas if Governor Greg Abbott signs a bill requiring the postings of the 10 Commandments in all public school classrooms. The groups are already suing Louisiana over its 10 Commandments law passed last year. Chloe Kempf, a staff attorney with the ACLU of Texas, says the two cases are very similar.
The text of the bill very clearly lays out the exact text of the 10 Commandments that will be allowable under SB 10. And that represents the legislature picking and choosing which religious doctrines and translations are correct and which will be favored under the law, which is also unconstitutional.
Senate Bill 10 requires the 10 Commandments to be posted using the translations from the King James Bible. It's 80 degrees. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Auto Insurance protects the vehicles that work to keep small businesses moving forward, including protection while running errands and other tasks. At progressivecommercial.com.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston. Hello,
Friday.
I don't even know what to say. If you haven't chosen to watch the show on YouTube, today's the day to do it. Celeste is out of control.
She is.
As you can tell from the hysterical laugh. And you just took an energy shot on top of all of this.
I'm happy. For Mother's Day, I got a basket of curated little treats, like a little relax, like a little things. And one of them was this little bottle that was packaged very nicely, and it has all of these natural caffeines. And so
natural caffeines.
So you took them all.
Just a little swig, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, I think the room is spinning.
So caffeine does it to you.
Anyway,
so
it's great. It's great. It's Friday. It's not that beautiful outside, but we're going to have a beautiful show.
I fell asleep in my office. No, I'm kidding. But do
you need a shot?
I mean, I have a beautiful view of downtown. I just can't see it today.
30 years, I built a serious journalistic career here. And this is where it's going to end. I can see it. It might end today. Anyway, we have a full show for you today. A lot to talk about, but what a lot of folks are talking about is that weather out there. We have been having emergency notifications coming on during the air. We may get interrupted with those during the show today, so don't worry. It's just to keep you well informed on what's going on out there. But also keeping us well informed is Frank Billingsley.
Yeah, severe weather. There's severe weather to the south. There's a warning until 11:30. So if you're places like Alvin and Manville, watch out. This is coming through with some pretty good winds, 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, dropping about an inch to an inch and a half of rain. So it's moving at 20 miles an hour. So it's not going to drop a whole lot of rain. It will rain, certainly, but we're not looking at a flood issue. It's going to move right toward the coast, and then it looks like it will pretty much be out of here. It's 11 o'clock now. I'd say it's pretty much out of here by 1.
Oh, really?
And then what does after 1 o'clock look like?
You know what? It still might be a little bit gloomy. The good news is tomorrow, high temperatures right around 88, 90, and lower humidity and a north wind.
And no rain.
So it will be no wind, no rain. So it'll be a pretty spectacular Saturday.
Oh, good, because I'm going
Saturday.
to a wedding tomorrow, so they're going to have good weather for their wedding?
Yes. You know,
now, Ernie, do you cry?
They say if it rains on your wedding day, it's good luck.
Do you cry at weddings?
I don't cry much. You know where I cry?
That's true. You have a cold
heart. I don't
heart.
cry at weddings. I cry watching reality shows. Like when I
gosh,
watch
Ernie.
Survivor and I see that story of that woman who's 53 years old and her whole life people told her she couldn't do something and she wins a challenge of holding a ball on a stick for an hour, I'm like, you go. And I tear up. It's so weird.
No,
That's very weird.
What about you,
It
Frank?
is.
Do I cry at weddings?
Yeah.
No. I'm usually pretty happy at weddings.
Only at your own.
I
actually
cry.
perform some.
Oh, yeah, no, I cry at weddings and graduations. I cry at recitals.
I may be crying today before the show is over.
Anyway, that's
I'll
the
get it
weather.
together.
Watch out
That's
if
the
you're
weather.
south of Houston. Here in Houston, it's just kind of gloomy.
Okay, well,
let's
we've
move
got
on.
a lot going on today. The
Aye,
vice
aye.
chair of Harris County's GOP will be joining us, talk about how Republicans locally are feeling about President Trump's big, beautiful bill. And we're also going to learn about a little bit more about Little House on the Prairie from one of our own here in Houston. Lee Ingalls lives here, relative, descendant of that family, and Celeste is excited for that. We'll get to all of that as the show moves on. But as always, we dive into the topics at the top of the show. Celeste, take us away.
Thanks, Ernie. Paramount Global has offered $15 million to settle, but President Trump's legal team wants more. This comes after a month into negotiations between Paramount Global and President Trump to settle his $20 billion lawsuit against the company through mediation. Fox News Digital confirmed that Trump rejected a $15 million offer to settle his lawsuit, according to a source familiar with the matter. The president's legal team is also demanding at least $25 million and an apology from CBS News. For a little refresh, for those who may not have been following this case, last October, President Trump sued CBS News and Paramount for $10 billion over allegations of election interference involving the 60 Minutes interview of then Vice President Kamala Harris. That aired weeks before the presidential election. The amount has since jumped to $20 billion. Should the President of the United States of America be suing a news outlet and demanding an apology? Does the president have a case, or is this just being petty? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
You wouldn't be surprised to know I have a lot of thoughts on this
Okay.
one.
You find it petty, do you?
Petty probably isn't the word I would have used. First of all, show me the harm, because usually in a lawsuit you have to see where were the damages. He won the election.
Right.
Had he lost, I could see there being more, what were the causes that made him lose? One of them he could point to was this edited interview, so therefore he would have cause to sue. He won, so it did not harm his campaign to the point of loss. First point. Second point is what they did in that edit was they did not, as some people have made it sound, they did not cobble together an answer for Kamala. She had given a longer answer. They have since broadcast the full answer, and they cut down and took the end of her comment on the same question. Right. They hadn't moved an answer from another place. This happens all the time when you are editing a story. You look to see your goal is to be truthful to their answer. But sometimes a guest, like I'm doing right now, can ramble on, and you want to just take the important moment, what the editor feels is significant.
How do you explain using one answer for one broadcast and a different answer for a different broadcast? I mean, if you're going to edit, I get that. We do that all the time. In news. Yeah, that's normal. But you have to be consistent. Generally, if you are talking about high-level politics, well, I can see you're interviewing a woman whose house is burned down, and you use this one quote that this is what we think happened, and in the 10 o'clock news you say, I lost everything, and we're trying to find insurance. I mean, that puts more perspective on the story, perhaps. So, but to use two different quotes from the same woman who's running for president in the last really final hours of the campaign seems to be unjustified.
I think it would be more honest by showing the variety of things she said during the interview. If your time is limited and you're showing this and that,
it does go to intent. I mean, was the intent malicious or was it mistaken? That's really.
I don't think it was mistaken. I think it's just policy. I'm sorry, we keep cutting off Celeste.
Well, was it malicious, do you think?
Well, a key point of Trump's legal argument is that the edited versions of the 60 Minutes Harris interview represent commercial speech, and that, as alleged in the president's lawsuit, CBS competes for advertising with Trump's media businesses, including Truth Social's parent company, Trump Media and Technology Group, which is majority owned by the president. looking at this for me, I think this falls more on CBS in that show me the receipts. Show me the full unedited. Who has seen
And they have.
the
They've
full
put it out.
unedited interview with her answers? Is it really different?
I've seen it. It's been put out there.
It's very hairy to
I
me.
don't know that she was that different in her response to it. I think oftentimes, and I've got a long career of doing long format interviews, and I don't like to cut them down to something smaller, but oftentimes what happens when someone is asked a question, now this may not be the case there, but they start at a place, and while they're answering you, they're thinking through the complete answer to the question, and they get to what they want to say in their answer. And so watching that, that's kind of how I felt where she was going. My problem with it is she was on the campaign trail. There's no questions that are going to surprise her.
We want to hear from you. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. We have a call now on the line. Margaret from Gulfgate. Margaret, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your question or comment?
Well, I have a comment. It used to be put yourself out there in the public office, or if you were a star or whatever. If you're a public figure, you kind of put yourself open for criticism, and occasionally for things that are incorrect. But, if there has been no damage done to the gentleman in question, I don't think he really should be suing.
Right.
I think it's petty. And, but anybody that has been following the news for the last 8 years understands that the person we are discussing has a tendency to like to retaliate when he doesn't get what he wants.
Margaret, thank you for those
Margaret.
thoughts on that. Remember, we're interested in your thoughts. 713-440-8870.
Now, what if Trump's legal team won? They won the $20 billion. Do you think he would put it towards America's deficit?
I think there would be
You think I'm 5 years old?
Thanks, Margaret, for giving us a call.
Yeah. It's interesting that they've already rejected a $15 million offer to settle it.
Well, there's a bigger game at play here, too. It's the sale of CBS, and they're trying to sell it.
Correct.
And so they want, and the Trump administration, the federal government has to sign off on this merger
the
sale.
FCC.
And so there's something else at play here, too. There's also power and wanting to control the narrative and to scare other media outlets. Don't touch this stuff. Don't. So that they back off. And so our coverage isn't as full and rich.
And that's where I think that CBS needs to say, no, we're going to push through and we're going to take this to trial.
Right.
Because to me, that most people don't understand the full under negotiations between FCC and networks and television and media and things like that, as well as editing.
Yeah. The last thing is the reason that the series interviews that aired for so long and now we've just relaunched, there's a plug. The reason we created that show was that I didn't like the idea of editing into people.
We do have a weather interruption happening coming up soon.
And
All right,
we
we're
are back. We'll keep you up to date on any important changes in the weather as it continues to happen. And we do have Frank Billingsley right here with us, which I did get a YouTube commenter. We did get one that said, didn't know I could still hear my favorite weatherman. Yay! So that was on YouTube. I just want to put a button on. We were talking about this Trump lawsuit with Paramount Global and CBS. So I just want to finish a comment I was making, was that the reason we had launched originally the series Interviews, and this happened long ago in my career, I didn't like editing interviews, because I always felt when you edit someone's interview, then you can craft their answer. And I have seen people do it. I was in college. I was editing an interview with someone I had done. She mentioned her and her daughter. Nowhere in the rest of the interview had we mentioned she had a daughter. And this is in the old days with a razor blade. Oh. I went in and changed her answer to a singular answer because it didn't matter that her daughter was with her. When I looked at that, I said to myself, well, I can change them to say anything I want. Well, and that's why I started doing live-to-tape interviews, why I like a show like this where we're on live with our guests. They get a chance to say what they're thinking, and you get to hear how they say it, not the way we interpret it.
Well, let's hear what James has to say from the Woodlands. James, you there?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Hello, James.
I'll be brief, but earlier in my career, I'm a lot older now, I was in U.S. Army intelligence, and there are things going on around the world 24/7. We are places that nobody knows that we are at. It's a constant drama and significant decisions that need to be made that we can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And so I think the President of the United States should concentrate on being our leader of the free world and not have time for this nonsense. We need a full-time president, not a media star. I want somebody who's going to get the job done and push this nonsense aside.
Fair enough. That's why we vote.
Thanks, James. Thanks for giving your perspective.
We got this text. This is kind of random. I have prepared for hurricane season. I updated my Whataburger app.
Yes, the Whataburger app. And for folks that are wondering what's going on there, it was Whataburger knew what was closed and what was open better than the Power apps that were there.
Right.
We got another text. Celeste, you want to read that for us?
Sure. Regarding the Trump suit versus CBS, best comment I saw was referring to him as a soft shell taco. CK from Magnolia.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Trump always. What was it?
Uh,
Taco stands for. They'll tell us.
I don't know, but there's
Trump. Here it is. It's coming in right now. Come on, Jim. Type faster.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, yes. Trump always chickens out. That's what taco
Chickens
stands
out.
for.
Okay.
Yes,
Got
there's
it.
been memes about that, and that was actually asked of him in a press conference just like 2 days ago, and they actually said his thoughts on taco. And
I think it is fair to say what James is saying, that, and to your point, Trump won. Get on with being the president and let this go. I mean,
doesn't surprise us. Okay. Would you like me to go on to my story now?
I've been waiting for you to go on.
You have like 1 second.
Interesting point. Quickly before we go, you know what? I'm going to jump on to a couple little tidbits we have here. Today is National Creativity Day. So it's a perfect day to go use some hobbies and do something. It's also
like gardening.
Here she goes.
Gardening.
It's National Water a Flower Day. And the good Lord has taken care of that by bringing us the rain.
Keep going. The self-driving car company Waymo is going to start testing a small fleet of vehicles in Houston this summer. If a driverless car came to pick you up, would you get in it?
No, because I've seen that commercial where the car kidnaps you and takes you to a surprise party.
Yes, we've heard this story from both of you multiple times. All right, coming up on Hello Houston, we talked to Kyle Scott, the vice chair of the Harris County GOP, about Republicans and how they're feeling about our current situation and President Trump's big, beautiful bill, and if the bill will pass. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7. Stay with us.
It's more important than ever to stay informed. That's why Houston Public Media delivers well-researched news that's free for everyone.
And right now, your support helps make sure it stays that way. No subscription, no paywall, just news that's here when you need it.
Give today to keep yourself and your community informed, no matter what the future holds.
Make your donation now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
You think it's behind you. You've come so far, done so much. You think you'll never see them again. But turn around, and there they are. On the next Snap Judgment, the wedding guest. Snap Judgment. Do not miss it.
You can listen to Snap Judgment. It's on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from Alley Theater, presenting Private Lives. When divorced couple Elliot and Amanda accidentally find themselves honeymooning with their new spouses in adjacent rooms, sparks fly and tempers flare with passion and humor through June 15th. More at alleytheater.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, hello, hello. It's Friday, Celeste.
It's Friday.
Ernie.
I'm happy.
Okay, Elon Musk recently announced that he'll be leaving his role as a top advisor for President Trump after spearheading the Department of Government Efficiency. Musk's decision to leave was announced a day after an interview with CBS, in which he described his disappointment over President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Several lawmakers have shared their skepticism over the bill as well. So, what do local Republicans think about what's going on in Washington? Kyle Scott is the vice chair of the Harris County GOP and a member of the Harris Central Appraisal District representing Place 2, and he's here with us now. If you have any questions or comments for Kyle, give us a call, 713-440-8870. Kyle, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kyle.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Kyle, so what would you say right now is the GOP sentiment over the big, beautiful bill?
I think all of us are happy about the extension of the tax cuts, the extension of SALT, the tax breaks that will be given on people earning tips, Social Security benefits, as well as auto interest. And then there's also with the, tying some of the benefits for Medicaid to work requirements, I think a lot of people are satisfied with as well.
Do you think, Kyle, that you can you can take the taxes off of Social Security, but you could turn around in the next year and cut Social Security so that, in effect, a person getting $1,000 a month doesn't pay taxes on it, but now is only going to get $750 a month?
You're right. It's always possible to cut entitlement programs. As we know, that Social Security is the proverbial third rail of politics. Right. Very few people want to touch it because of their political fate if they do, right? As anybody will tell you when you're talking about the deficit that, until we address some of the larger entitlement programs or the military, any huge effort to curb our spending is going to be curtailed to some of the smaller matters, right? I don't think that there's been any serious proposal been put forward to, really cut back on the Social Security benefits.
Yeah.
The Tax Foundation says the bill's tax and spending changes would increase the 10-year budget deficit by $2.6 trillion from 2025 through 2034 on a conventional basis before added interest cost. So explain to me how this is supposed to be helping the deficit, yet it could take us into a $2.6 trillion deficit.
Yeah, like many people, right? what you consider a deficit hawk, in the sense that I think one of the existential threats facing us are deficits, right? What this bill does is so when you look out 10 years into the future, when we talk about either reducing or adding to the deficit, what this bill does is it actually curbs the arc of what the deficit is. So prior to this bill, it would have been something like 6 trillion in projected deficit over the next 10 years, and this reduces the arc of the deficit growth.
So while we're on the subject of finances, the Department of Government Efficiency, all these cuts, all these people losing their jobs, cuts of USA Department, on and on and on and on. Have we seen any real financial benefit that we can point to?
So this again is a point of discrepancy, and different people are kind of giving you different answers, and it's not kind of tough. It's extremely difficult to track where all of these are, because a lot of the proposed changes coming out of DOGE require congressional approval. So you can claim victory on one side, but until Congress approves those cuts, they don't necessarily go into effect. And of course, all of this stuff is currently being litigated as well. So until it works its way through the court system, we're not going to have an accurate accounting of all the cuts that were made.
Now, I do have one more question for you on this topic. Generally, Republicans are known for being very fiscally conservative. If you're looking at this, that is not necessarily what the president is proposing. How do you explain that?
So I'll say, two things on this matter. I don't know that you would run into anybody on the Republican side who would say, yeah, we should spend more, right? Those are very few and far between. But I also don't think that you run into any voters. A lot of times voters, it's one of these issues where voters say, yes, we want cuts, just don't cut the things I like. And that's a predicament. That's a predicament that all elected officials find themselves in, because on a grand scale, on a macro level, we all know that a deficit is a problem. But on the flip side, all of us have programs the government provides that we like, and we're not willing to cut those. So in order for somebody in a national office whose constituency is the entire nation, they're going to have to make cuts that are going to hurt somebody at some point in time, or at least earn them a little bit of ire in those eyes. So that's the political reality of the landscape, is that until voters actually make this a priority or are willing to sustain cuts to programs even they like, it's going to be very difficult to make serious changes within our deficit.
I guess my question then would be, you keep using the term, cuts that people like. I mean, when we are looking at Medicaid, the majority of people on Medicaid are in need of it, and majority are children. And I'm not sure it's a like thing versus a livelihood.
Yeah, and you're right. Like isn't necessarily the most accurate term. Things that we deem essential or those sorts of things. Right. So things that we want government to do. On the question of Medicare within the big, beautiful bill, right, it's that work requirement that the Republicans added in. So it doesn't cut benefits for children or for people who, will need it. What it requires is that if you are able to work and you choose not to work, then those benefits will be taken away. But if you choose to work and you still can't afford the insurance, you can still maintain your Medicaid benefits. So that's sort of...
Yeah, I just want to remind folks we're talking with Kyle Scott, who is the vice chair of the Harris County GOP, and we're taking your calls and questions. It's 713-440-8870. There's a couple places I want to go with what you've already said, but back to the Medicare, Medicaid, the cutting of those funds. If I understand it correctly, and we've spoken with other elected officials about this, the amount that is asked to be cut from this budget line, if you cut everything else in that budget line and left Medicare or Medicaid alone, you still wouldn't be able to meet the level they're asking to be cut at. So they are actually saying you have to cut these programs, whether we like it or not, or they say it in words, they're saying it in numbers. So I'm just curious your reaction to that before I ask the other question I had for you.
I think what we're talking about here is how we're defining the people who receive these programs and what we consider cuts. So if I were to receive Medicaid and this bill tells me that I can no longer receive it, the question is, well, why am I no longer receiving it? And is it a cut that people would agree with or not agree with.
Are there enough
So,
of those individuals to make up for the amount of money, the 800 million they're saying has to be cut or whatever it is? Does the math
I don't
work?
think. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I stepped on you there.
That's okay.
So I don't think that it would, is what I've seen, the scoring that's come out, the projections are there, but it always comes down to the enforcement mechanism, right? How is this going to be administered? And then are those necessary? So the people who would no longer qualify under this bill, how are we going to identify them and how will they be removed from those benefit programs? So it's really going to come down to the implementation side and not just the legislative side.
Okay, back to the question that I actually had for you a few minutes ago is Trump projects himself as the great negotiator. And we have seen the idea is he throws a big thing out there and then he battles with people to get it to what it is. And so there's give and take and negotiation. And we see this with the tariffs, the way he's handling those. Are our elected officials on both sides of the aisle not doing what they should in the battling back? That just because he puts out a program, we've seen this in all aspects of his career, there is a fight that happens after it. It seems as though most Republicans, when he puts out a program, are like, all right, that's what the president wants. Shouldn't they be fighting back? Isn't that his way of operating?
So in terms of fighting back, just so I'm clear on the question, fighting back against what he's suggesting or fighting back against the style in which he's doing it?
Well, I assume the style in which he's doing it, that ship has left. But in what he's proposing, isn't there inherent in him a negotiation that he expects to go on? And it seems as though his policies are put out there and the Republicans are like, hey, the president said it, we're there for him.
Well, if you think that there needs to be pushback, I think that, the left side of the aisle is providing some of that pushback. Now, when we think about the role of the president, right, they have the commander-in-chief hat. They have a lot of different hats they wear. And one of the informal hats is that they are kind of, the leader of the party for the term in which they were in office. So the question becomes how much of the disagreement with the government, with the president's proposals should happen in public and how much of that should happen behind closed doors, right? Keep family business private. And then when we all go out front, we stick together as a family. So the question isn't, for me, are those negotiations going on, but should they be happening in private or should they be happening in public?
Well, then answer the other question. Are those negotiations going on, do you believe?
It is, from my understanding, and this is just anecdotal, informal, talking with some of our local Congress people, Trump reaches out to them. And he's open to their communication back to the office as well, saying, I have a problem with this. We need to work on that. And he really is, as much as he is sort of this big idea guy, does leave a lot of that delegation to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
So will the Senate look to make key modifications? And if the GOP is having these negotiations with the president, what type of things do you think they are saying and asking him to do? And what type of modifications do you think need to be done that will lessen the blow to people within the Harris County area?
Yeah. So if I'm asked to predict what's going to happen in politics nowadays, I'm going to be wrong. I have no idea
we all
what's
are,
going to come
Kyle.
out of the
we
Senate,
all are.
where any of that goes. So I'm a terrible prognosticator on that front, right? I think what we traditionally see in the Senate is a larger attachment and endorsement of national issues, right? And this is the way that the system was designed. The House is supposed to represent their local constituency, and the Senate, particularly after the ratification of the 17th Amendment, it takes a more national-oriented approach. So the question is going to be, when the Senate gets in there, when you're looking at questions like Medicaid or the military, are they going to be satisfied with the level of spending that's involved there, and are they going to ask for more, right? So in those terms, I think that you will see, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some spending bumps come out of the Senate, if I was going to put it there. And then if they have to go to reconciliation, that's how they do it. But because this is going through the reconciliation process, there are very strict parliamentary rules on what can happen in either the House or the Senate. So this isn't a traditional bill that goes through each houses and it gets worked out through conference and it goes to the president for signature. Because this is reconciliation, there are tighter restrictions on what can actually be included in what it can address. So in terms of what we're seeing in Harris County, I think all of us in Harris County, now I missed it, but you guys had a weather alert, and our favorite weatherman is right there, center of my screen right now. We know what season we're in. We know what Houston faces in terms of weather. I think everybody within Harris County and our greater Gulf Coast region would like to see more federal spending in terms of drainage and infrastructure issues related to hurricanes.
We had a text that came in, and the text is, if someone needs to make sacrifices, why is it always the poor? How about the billionaire sacrifice a few tax cuts instead?
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I challenge the premise because I don't always think that it's always the same group of people. Do I think that there is some level in which the economics make sense to have different levels of tax cuts, right? Regressive versus progressive. But we also need to understand that when this bill was not designed, and I don't see it in there where it's taking things out on the poor. In fact, we've increased the child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500. We're talking about low-wage earners, tips earners are now getting a tax break. When we're talking about people on fixed income, they are getting a tax break. When we're talking about people who can't afford to buy a car in cash but have to take out an auto loan, they're going to get a tax benefit from those things as well. So when we talk about punishing people or making people pay, it's just not what's in the bill.
Well, there is. I've already read articles about the tips and not being taxed. That people will start tipping less, and they're going to say, "Well, you're not." I saw your reaction there, but I can see that happening where you're a 20% tipper, and they're like, "Well, you're not going to be paying any taxes on it. I'm going to go down to being a 15% tipper." So again, you take from one hand that you gave with the other, right?
I think that level of. I think that's grasping at straws. I mean, to predict what
it's being talked
an
about.
Obscure taxing policy, right? Because when I tip, at no point do I consider if I tip cash, should I tip less than if I tip on a credit card? Because they may just be pocketing the cash, and therefore net, I'm giving them the same level of tip. I've never made that calculation before.
But if you talk about paying your fair share of it, the president was very vocal about, he paid very low taxes because he followed the programs that were out there and it worked for him. He wasn't breaking the law. He was doing what the law allowed. If, in fact, that is the case, should not the laws be looked at that those that are making these massive amounts of money in our culture, in our community, in our country, shouldn't we be looking at how to make sure that they're not getting this freedom of being able to get out of taxes when folks at the very low end of it all, they don't have those loopholes to get out of? And so percentage-wise, what they're giving back to the government is so much more than those who have been so fortunate in our economy to be doing better.
Yeah, so a number of issues there. I don't disagree with the premise that the tax code is immensely complex and too complex. And what happens when you build in complexity to the tax code is you create an entire industry of people trying to get around the tax code, right? CPAs aren't going to like me saying this, but I've said it, so sorry. Right? Because those are the truth. And you have to navigate the tax code through GPS, and lower income people are still navigating by the stars, right? To use that metaphor, because we don't have the money that enables us to go out and hire big law firms or big tax firms. So I totally agree that the complexity of the tax code is a disadvantage to average everyday working families. But at the same time, I like the child tax credit, right? Because I'm a beneficiary of that. I like the home mortgage credit. So again, we're back to this paradox of, well, I like this part of the complexity, but I think that there's complexity, but can we save the one that I know and benefits me? So that's a problem there. But when we have to look at where the overall revenue comes from, or the percentage of government revenue from people paying taxes, a married couple making a combined salary of $80,000 a year with 2 kids, they're getting a tax rebate. They're not sending tax money to the government, right? So the question of, are they paying taxes? Well, there's a tax rate attached to their pay stub, but then they're getting a rebate as well once those taxes are filed.
Kyle, there have been some concerns that the president has been exceeding his power. Do you feel that locally, how do Republicans feel about that, given the economy, immigration, some of the situations that we've had, the due process? Locally, what can you say how Republicans feel that the president is doing so far?
So I don't think Republicans or Democrats or independents are going to be much different in our reaction. When our guy is doing it, we like it. When the other guy isn't doing it, we don't like it. I mean, those are just facts of the matter. So if the ends align with our desired ends, then, certain parties are willing to grant more latitude. But I do think that the core group of Republicans, the Republicans that I talk to, we're thinking, yes, we like directionally where these things are going. We also like the idea that because executive orders are used, that we would like to see those executive orders to be turned into legislation, because that's a more sustainable model.
Correct.
Because from one presidency to the next, an executive order just goes away.
Correct.
We saw this with Trump.
So does that
right?
concern you? I want to pause you right there. Does that concern you that we are seeing the president push things through as a Republican? Do you find it a little alarming that perhaps the next president could be a Democrat and he could use those same powers to push things through? Does that concern you at all?
I don't think that we've seen anything differently from the 90s till now. The number of executive orders that are passed through from administration to administration has increased. But we have seen, believe Barack Obama, because of his 8-year term, we saw more executive orders come out of that administration than any other administration.
The president has already, that was the only way he could get anything done.
I was just going to say the president has already exceeded, I believe, Barack Obama's executive orders.
Do you think, though, that there should be guardrails on use of...
I'm sorry?
Do you believe there should be guardrails on use of these executive orders so that the things that happen can be stable and consistent for our country moving forward, as opposed to each administration turning the boat different directions all the time?
Yeah, so personally, I won't speak for anyone else. Sure. I think the law should go through Congress. Now, there are certain emergency situations in which the executive orders need to be issued, right? But for the purpose of stability, it needs to go through the legislative process. But I want to be clear on this. To lay executive orders and say, it's just Trump, it's the Republicans are so bad at this, that's not true. Both sides do it.
So you're pretty happy right now. We have to wrap, but sounds to me like you're pretty happy.
Sorry.
I think we're still super early. I like directionally in the way it's going. I think that, what I'm happy with is most of us feel frustration that the government doesn't do enough, that it doesn't move quickly enough. And Trump is moving quickly and doing a lot of things in his early days. And that's satisfying to see that there's a sort of a freshness to that approach.
But driving a car fast recklessly doesn't get you where you need to go any quicker.
I'll disagree with the term reckless.
Okay. Reckless. There you go. Kyle Scott is the vice chair of the Harris County GOP and a member of the Harris Central Appraisal District representing Place 2. Thanks so much for joining us, Kyle. We are always welcome on Hello
Thank you
Houston.
guys very much. Thanks.
After the break, we'll be talking with Laura Ingalls about Little House on the Prairie. Stay with us. This is News 88.7.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Big families with small budgets have the least room of all to absorb higher costs in this economy.
They're drinking so much milk that, even though we go to Costco to get it, it's like $24, $25 a week.
I'm Kai Rizdal, the lived economy of a soon-to-be family of 8. Next time on Marketplace.
You can hear Marketplace coming up tonight. It's on at 6:30.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, after a new episode of Party Politics at 8, Great Performances presents a new Broadway production of Cole Porter's classical musical, Kiss Me Kate, at 8:30, tonight on TV8, or stream online.
Support comes from Scan Health Plan, a not-for-profit Medicare Advantage plan that has been dedicated to the health and independence of their members since 1977. More information at scanhealthplan.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from UpReach Learning, presenting a summer academic boot camp for grades K through 8th to prepare for next year's math, reading, and writing curriculum. Camps begin June 2nd. Registration info at upreachlearning.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to
I
Hello
know, it's
Houston.
still active out there. No warnings except for the bay and the coast. So any mariners, as they call themselves, should be careful out there. A few pretty good storms around Mont Belvieu right now, and continues to see a little bit in, looks like around the Kingwood area. So watch out there in Harris County. Then right down 45, it's messy as you get to Galveston.
So stay safe out there. If you're on the
give it
road.
another hour. Should clear.
Little House on the Prairie books. The Little House on the Prairie books were one of my favorites growing up.
I like Michael Landon myself.
Well, I read all the books.
Oh, my Lord.
I read all the books in third grade, and it was a series of American children's novels written by Laura Ingalls Wilder based on her growing up in adulthood in the American Midwest in the later part of the 1800s. The books were adapted into a widely popular and celebrated television series that Frank liked Michael Landon on, that ran from 1974 to 1983 and centered on the Ingalls family. Joining us now to tell us more about the Ingalls family is author and writer R. Lee Ingalls, who, as his name suggests, is also a member of the Ingalls family. Lee's books include Ingalls on the Prairie, Cooking on the Prairie with the Ingalls Family, The Prairie Has a Rainbow. Lee, welcome to Hello Houston. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here.
So how are you related to Laura Ingalls?
Yeah, so great question. I get that one often.
I'm sure.
Kind of easy to explain, but it helps to understand Laura's family first.
Right.
So Laura is one of four daughters, for Charles and Carolyn. Of the four girls, only one of them had their own child, and that was Laura. She had a daughter named Rose. Rose did have a child, but the child died in infancy, and because of the complications from the birth, she was not able to have any more children. So the four girls, there are no direct descendants, which means for Charles and Carolyn, they too don't have direct descendants that are alive today. So you have to look to a sibling of either Charles or Carolyn, and my great-great-grandfather, Lansford James, was Charles' brother.
Okay, so
that's a connection.
I got it. Okay, so you're like a first cousin 4 times removed.
Yeah. So my great-grandfather was Laura's cousin. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
When did you first make the connection to you and the Little House books?
You know, I was in grade school, and one of my schoolmates came up to me and asked, "Are you part of the Little House on the Prairie Ingalls family? You spell your name the same way." And I thought, I don't know. So I went home and I asked my mother, and she said, yes. She wasn't exactly sure how we were connected, but that was the first.
Have you done any
connection.
23andMe or Ancestry just to see where all the DNA might go?
I have, and it's interesting. There's a lot that's out there about my family, especially on the Ingalls side. So there are libraries up in the upper Midwest that have collections based on their memorabilia and that. So it's easy to trace that side of my family.
And so now you're writing.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so that first introduction to it, I think, kind of planted a seed that someday one of us might pick up the pen again and write about the family. But when I was in my 40s and nobody had, I thought, okay, that might have to be me. So I started writing down memory joggers of stories that happened in our family that might make an interesting book. And once I retired from corporate America, my mother and I began working on the first book. It's that was her story.
I read all of Laura Ingalls Wilder's books, Big House on the Prairie in third grade. My third grade teacher, Miss Richardson, I love her, would read those to us after recess. And now I have all the books for my daughter, but now I feel like I need to get Cooking on the Prairie
With the Ingalls family, talk to me about some of those recipes, because one of my favorite things about the book was kind of the homesteading skills that they would talk about, and the making of the bread and
Home
the
ec 101.
sewing home ec. I loved it. Now I can't garden, but that's a different story.
That's a different story.
Tell me about the cooking on the prairie with the Ingalls family.
Sure. So my family is known for large family gatherings. My mother is one of 11, my dad's one of 6, and we were not the big families in the group. So there's a lot of people there. So at our gatherings, everybody would bring food of some type. So a lot of the recipes that are in there came from those family gatherings. I did put my mother's macaroni salad in there because it's just so funny to read. It calls for a gallon of mayonnaise and
Oh my gosh.
7 to 8 pound ham as some of the ingredients to give you an idea of how it reads. So it's really, unless you're going to prepare food for 100, that might not be the best recipe. But I did cut it down for a family that was
family.
smaller.
And now, is it like fresh mayo, like you're whipping the eggs, or is this like throw in some Miracle Whip?
From your chicken coop? Did you get the eggs from your chicken?
We did.
I know.
50
I'm looking at
layers.
this list knowing that didn't happen.
No.
Well, so what's your funnest part about all of this adventure?
Yeah.
So it's been surprising in many, many ways. So writing about my parents gave me a little bit more clarity in the time that they were raised and the decisions that they were faced with and how they got to what they decided to do. So that was kind of interesting. It saddens me to say this, but it also revealed that we are 2 generations from people not recognizing us in a photo or knowing much about the lives that we lived. And I'm guilty of that. So that's part of what saddened me. I didn't know that much about my grandparents the way that I should. So that was, again, sad, but it also put me on kind of a different path that I talk about it quite a bit so that people will go back to their grandparents if they're still here and ask them, how did you meet? And what was your first date like? And that was another surprise. So when I talked to my dad about how he met my mother, it was different than the story my mother told. So I thought there's a lot of uniqueness in asking those questions to your family. So
take me further back. And what I'm curious is, once you started identifying who your lineage was and who these folks were there stories that you found within your family tree that told you more about Laura and that whole experience? I mean, in some ways to us it feels so far away, but really it's just a few generations.
Right,
were there
right.
still inside family stories you uncovered?
There are. I said my great-great-grandfather was Charles' brother. So his name was Lansford. He had another brother named Hiram, and the 2 of them actually served in the Civil War and were stationed at a fort in Chattanooga. And there's a lot of details about what their experience was like. And a friend of mine had a book about the Civil War and some of the forts. So I went and thumbed through it to see, is Chattanooga in here? And if so, I'd serve a photo of my great-great-grandfather in there, but I didn't see it. But, So you uncover that kind of history.
So you talked somewhat, I read an article in Outsmart that Laura's struggles on the prairie were somewhat akin to your struggles growing up.
Yeah. So I think everybody has an interesting time that they live in. And I think the part of what makes her book so interesting still today are that she captured the lives of an average American family at an extraordinary time in our nation's history. And I'm a guy of a certain age. And when I look back over my life, there's a lot of events that happened, both nationally and internationally, that actually impacted our family. And I think how it impacts an average American family is interesting because those stories aren't often told.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So what new Prairie adventures are you looking at?
Pray tell.
Prairie adventures.
So my second book, The Prairie Has a Rainbow, stops at a certain point. And so that there will be another book that will cover the last 25 years of my life. So that one's up next. My mother, I hope I get through this. So her last day that she was out of bed, we sat together, and she gave me a box, and the box contained all her memorabilia from a trip that she took with her sister in 1983. And she asked me to write that book for her. So I'm working on that currently.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Laura Ingalls is an author and writer, as well as a member of the Ingalls family that was the subject of the Little House on the Prairie books and TV series. Lee, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Houston Public Media's General Manager, Lisa Shumate, who will share with us about her next big adventure after spending over a decade leading us here at Houston Public Media. Plus, we have all the places and people you will want to see in Houston this weekend for our weekly last-minute plans. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news that keeps us all informed by supporting Houston Public Media. Stand up for your right to information. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
We have a 50% chance of more showers and thunderstorms. Our high near 88. Currently, it is 78, and this is your NPR station, KUHF Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we continue diving into today's top stories, including the Texas House and Senate meeting to iron out differences on Senate Bill 2972 that would restrict protesting on college campuses. I'm Frank Billingsley.
We'll also chat with Houston Public Media's Lisa Shumate, who is on to a new chapter after over a decade as HPM's Associate Vice President and General Manager. I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, we'll share some events happening this weekend in Houston in our weekly Last Minute Plans segment.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can always watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump welcomes back his close advisor Elon Musk to the White House later this hour. Musk says he is leaving the federal government. NPR's Stephen Fowler has more on what that means for the entity known as the Department of Government Efficiency.
Musk departs DOGE after 130 days marked by legal setbacks, clashes with cabinet members, and little evidence to support claims of savings or government efficiency. He says his scheduled time as a special government employee is up, and he's returning his focus to his business empire. Musk's departure won't likely change much. Much of the DOGE work, the parts that haven't been reversed or held up in court at least, have always been done by people embedded in agencies as full-on federal employees. Stephen Fowler, NPR News, Atlanta.
The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to revoke, for now, a Biden-era program that gave migrants from unstable countries temporary legal status in the United States. NPR's Adrian Florido reports the decision means 500,000 people could now face deportation.
The court's order was brief and unsigned, but its ramifications were clear. The government can, for the time being, move forward with expelling about 500,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, and Nicaragua who benefited from the program known as humanitarian parole. The Biden administration had temporarily allowed them into the U.S. as long as they had a private sponsor. President Trump tried to revoke their status on his first day in office, but lower courts blocked him. The program's ultimate fate is still being litigated, but for now the justices have said deportations can proceed. Justices Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor dissented, citing, quote, the devastating consequences of allowing the government to precipitously upend the lives of close to 500,000 people. Adrian Florido, NPR News.
The United Nations has warned that 100% of the population of the Gaza Strip is at risk of famine. At a news briefing in Geneva, Jens Lurker of the UN Humanitarian Office, OCHA, accused Israel of blocking all but a trickle of humanitarian aid from entering the Palestinian territory since partially lifting a blockade earlier this month.
Gaza is the hungriest place on earth.
And the aid operation that we have ready to roll is being put in an operational straitjacket that makes it one of the most obstructed aid operations, not only in the world today, but in recent history.
Lurker is heard on the BBC. After a years-long battle for control over her own music, Taylor Swift has announced she is finally in charge of the master recordings of her first 6 albums. On her official website, the Grammy-winning superstar said today she purchased her material, originally released through Big Machine Records, from their most recent owner, the private equity firm Shamrock Capital. She did not disclose the amount she paid. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. A group of civil liberties organizations say they're prepared to sue Texas over a bill requiring the 10 Commandments be posted in every public school classroom. News 88.7's government reporter Andrew Schneider says the groups are only waiting to see whether Governor Greg Abbott signs Senate Bill 10.
The groups are already suing Louisiana over its 10 Commandments law passed last year, which imposes a similar mandate on that state's public schools.
The Louisiana case has striking similarities to the law that was passed here in Texas, SB 10.
Chloe Kempf is a staff attorney with the ACLU of Texas.
It takes these really vulnerable students who are legally required to be at public school and shows them this indoctrinating, conspicuous religious message every day. And it intrudes on their parents' rights to choose how to bring up their children in religious education.
The Louisiana law is on hold pending a ruling by the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
A local congresswoman says that there are major problems with President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill that will likely impact Houstonians should it pass. Lizzie Fletcher joined Houston Matters this morning. She says the biggest problem will be for low-income folks getting access to health care. However, she says future cuts to Medicaid may also impact other groups.
The Medicaid cuts will also affect people on Medicare because Medicaid covers folks who live in nursing homes. And so a lot of seniors rely on Medicaid for nursing home care. And so those Medicare recipients will also see challenges.
Texas has ranked at or near the bottom for health care coverage already. Fletcher says this bill would only compound the problem. It's currently 78 degrees, thunderstorms and light rain outside. The high of the day is near 88. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, noon hour.
Hello.
I love the noon hour.
Hello,
of the show.
big storms in some spots.
Yeah, where are we at, Frank?
Like 2 inches of rain right there on the northeast side there, just around Tascasita, up toward Kingwood. You've gotten a little rain, some heavy rain, especially between just north of I-10, 1.84 and Homont Park.
Yeah.
I know. So watch out for the rain, but nothing on the severe side right now.
You promise us by the end of this next hour it's all going to move away.
I think most of it's going to be gone the next hour, yeah.
I'm holding you to it.
Still cloudy, though.
Now when I hear I-10, I think of nice wines. I think, oh, there's a vineyard.
Of course you do.
This is happening on the other side of I-10.
Okay, got it.
Katy Freeway is nice wines.
And you know how you can get there? Driverless cars. We were talking about that earlier, about them introducing more of them in our area, and we got some comments over on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Here, there says, not into the self-driving cars. I'm with you on that here, there. Fellwood said, if you've been in California, watching those Waymo cars driving around is so eerie, but also cool. I mean, I like the concept of them. I'd say this also, I just don't trust mechanics in our world. So not the individuals, but the idea of mechanisms working right, because too many people make too many mistakes. I don't trust it.
Trust your mechanics.
We also got a text that said, I might get in a Waymo. An electric air taxi, on the other hand, is not happening. I just hope I didn't get hit by one. Richard.
Yikes.
I'm not sure if I read that wrong because it didn't come together in my mind when I read it.
Yes.
Well, what if somebody hits you and you're in?
It's terrible.
I mean, aren't there cameras inside that they can see what you're
There's
doing?
There's cameras inside, outside. Yeah.
We're watching you. And if you want to join the conversation, give us a call, 713-440-8870.
We've got a great hour coming up. Again, of course, we're going to be doing our last-minute plans later on. So if you've got stuff going on this weekend, you want to share them with us, give us a call.
You want to invite Ernie?
Yeah, please. 713-440-8870. Or you can email us, talk@hellohouston.org. Also, remember, if you've got events that you're organizing and things that are happening in the community on weekends, send them to us, and maybe they'll make our list that we share on the air.
Yes, that's a great idea. Send them to us. Maybe we'll pop in.
Yeah, Celeste wants to be invited. I just want to share.
Especially if it's a gardening thing.
If it's a gardening event. Tips and tricks.
For many years, the leader of this organization has been Lisa Shumate, and she is on her final lap, and it's going to run her right through here in a couple of minutes, and we'll have her here to talk about her tenure here, what she brought to not just this station, but to our whole community. And we're thrilled she can stop in and chat with us.
She's lovely.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that conversation.
But again, you know what it's time for. Topics. Celeste, what have you got?
Thanks, Ernie. So the Texas House approved a bill Wednesday that would give Texas parents and school boards a bigger role over what books students can access in public school libraries. Senate Bill 13 would give school boards, not school librarians, the final say over what materials are allowed in their schools' libraries by creating a framework for them to remove books based on complaints they receive. The bill would allow school boards to oversee book approvals and removals or delegate the responsibility to local school advisory councils if 20% of parents in a district sign a petition allowing their creation. Previously, SB 13 mandated the creation of those councils when it passed through the Senate in March, but the petition requirement was added in a House committee. SB 13 received final approval in the House Wednesday with a 86-55 vote. Lawmakers from both chambers must now try to iron out the differences between their two versions of the bill in a closed-door meeting before the legislative session ends on June 2nd. Are you for or against school boards and parents taking a bigger role in the public school library systems? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
I would start this by saying I don't know that people fully understand what a school librarian is. They do go to school for that. They get library science degrees. They are chosen, I'm assuming in most libraries, as it used to be done, you hire someone with a degree in library science. They understand it. They're looking at a community. They're building what is valued and should be in a public library or a school library. It's not just someone got a job and is buying books. There is an art. There's experience that goes into it. I think we need to know that that is part of the conversation. Maybe some people realize that, but I think a lot of people don't. They don't know how books get into life.
So you don't think they need to be told what to do?
I don't know that they should be told what to do. I think you can consult.
Okay, that's an advisory board. That's what they do. They tell
but
you
you
what to
can
do.
consult with someone. But if you're hiring an expert to do a job, let them do their job.
And to expand on that, most schools and school districts have systems in place where one single librarian is not just purchasing, and their role really is to making sure that the library is stocked with, literature that is current. They're looking at different trends that are essentially happening. They're looking at potentially maybe there needs to be more science literature, or we're looking at American poetry. So there is a full system of how libraries work that doesn't just fall on librarians.
Yep. We have a caller on this. Gianna is from Katy, which is the direction for nice wines.
Ah, yes.
Gianna,
excellent.
What do you think about this?
Well, I'm a high school English teacher in the Katy area, and
Gianna, I'm going to stop
should
you for 1 second. Say it again. We missed your identifier.
Yeah, I'm a high school English teacher in the Houston area.
Okay.
And it really is frustrating that people who don't even read the books that they're wanting to ban are trying to have a say on it. The teachers and the librarians, they read the book, they understand how it fits the curriculum. And we're not trying to give students anything they shouldn't read for no reason.
Gianna, I would love to chat more with you about this. Can you try calling us back again? Your line's a little choppy. It could be the weather out there. We got that you're an English teacher and you're concerned over people that want to ban these books, or oftentimes people who've never even read the books themselves. But give us a call back if you can, and we'll engage
That's
more.
what we should do.
Right.
Gianna has a good point. Everybody that wants to ban a book has to give me a 5-page
Has
book
to give
report.
Has to give you?
Has
Yes.
to rate it, because they ban them on the title, and they ban them by the author
I
sometimes.
want to
Don't
remind
judge a
everyone
book.
to the phone number 713-440-8870.
You killed my punchline. Don't judge a book by its cover.
Well, my book is swabbed and found, and that sounds like a pap smear. You know, it's about finding my biological family. So you can't just look at a title and say that's not a good book for someone.
And to go back to your point, Frank, I don't have a problem with a community having a voice in what is in their libraries, or a parent body having a say in what's in their libraries for their children. But I think oftentimes folks who get on these kind of boards, on these kind of concerns, have single issues that they're working toward, where paid library experts are looking, as Celeste said, about a whole development of it. What needs to be represented in a well-balanced library, because it serves more than a single issue or a single family.
And I think that's what Gianna, our earlier caller, was saying, essentially, that they're in the academic space. They're not just saying you should read this book because we like it. They're saying there's a reason for it. There's a whole through line to academics, from science to literature to math, that these teachers see it from a holistic approach.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a call in a moment. I do want to read this on YouTube from Chris Fitzgerald. There's a sort of librarian board in most districts that oversee choice and purchasing. Unfortunately, that job has been taken away from these boards and given to school boards. That's an interesting take on that.
Yes.
Kelly from Lake Conroe, what's your comment?
Hey, I graduated in 1983 from A&M Consolidated in College Station.
Good for you.
Didn't go to university until I was 50. My mother's the first graduating class of women. My dad's the longest-serving professor in A&M history.
Well, congratulations.
And when I was in elementary school, middle school, and high school, I was never taught Jim Crow laws, ever. I only learned about it when I was 50 years old and went to university, because there was a stop on educating us during that period of time on things that Texas didn't want us to know about. And I really would hesitate for anybody to be able to be in that power again.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you feel, though, then a board appointed deciding what books are in the library is a more dangerous selection than having librarians who decide?
I'm assuming that the librarians are going to have education that would be hopefully federally mandated as opposed to locally mandated, and the board would be locally mandated. And again, they did a really sorry job of educating us when we were younger, and I would hate that they would do that to another generation of kids just because they don't like something that's going on in another part of the country.
Well,
we
Kelly,
are the United States, and we should stay that way.
Kelly, sorry about
Thanks,
the
Kelly.
gaps in your education, but congratulations to you and your family on your academic histories. That's wonderful.
Never too late to learn.
713-440-8870. You look perplexed a little bit.
I was just going to say that, as somebody I talked about in third grade, I grew up in South Texas where it's 98% Hispanic. I'm firstborn generation American here in the United States. And books, going to the library, it was something just absolutely beautiful and amazing. My parents always encouraged us to read. And so for these boards that are looking at titles or things, to me, I think books are just absolutely wonderful and a part of growing up, and books can change your life. So again, I kind of go back to, I want these people that want to pull these books, you have to read them and give a book report. Maybe it'll change their life. You never know what would happen.
Yeah, but you can
Anyway,
see things
I'm sorry.
through
Go
through
ahead,
very...
Frank. Bring us to the next topic.
Next story, Frank.
This is almost personal. So River Oaks Mansion, that was once at the center of Houston's most talked about true crime cases of the 60s, is back on the market. The Southern Colonial style home at 1561 Kirby Drive, which has been listed for $5.2 million, served as the setting for the troubled marriage of wealthy socialite Joan Robinson Hill and her plastic surgeon husband, Dr. John Hill, which ultimately ended in Joan Hill's mysterious death and allegations that her husband was responsible for said death. The case and its many twists and turns served as the inspiration for Thomas Thompson's best-selling book, Blood and Money, which made a great ABC miniseries.
Farrah Fawcett.
I know. The home itself has all of the opulence one might expect of a house in one of Houston's poshest neighborhoods near the intersection of Kirby and Brentwood Drive. It sits on 0.6 acres, has 4 bedrooms. I've actually been in this house many times because the owners are friends of mine, and they are lovely people. And the only reason they're selling it is because they bought, well, I tell you, the reason they're selling it's got a lot of stairs. And, you know, they're like me. I'm at the age, too, where I'm ready to get rid of a house with stairs.
I want to go on record and say if you can still do stairs, don't ever get rid of stairs, because once you stop climbing them, you're not going to be able to do it again. My mom, 90 years old, she's up and down those stairs still, because I live in a 3-floor townhouse, and I want her doing the stairs.
I've seen the first floor.
So we want to know from you, would you live in a house that was associated with a murder?
Would you? Would you ever live in this house?
As Randy Jackson once said on American Idol, that's a no for me, dog.
You know what? It's a lovely home, and it's
hard pass.
And they're very lighthearted about its past, and they say, oh yeah, this is what happened there, and they throw great parties.
Would you live in a house that somebody was murdered in?
It depends on when, I think, and what were the circumstances.
No way.
But she wasn't murdered in it. I mean,
allegedly.
Allegedly he poisoned her with bacteria by giving her shots that she thought were good for her, and they were not good for her, allegedly. And he allegedly gave her these shots that allegedly led to her death. And on the way to take her to the emergency room, he passed many hospitals to get to the farthest away hospital he could get to, allegedly.
No. You know how much sage I would have to buy?
There is a better chance I would murder someone in my house than buy a house someone was murdered in.
Absolutely not. I think in the state of Texas, you have to disclose.
Yeah. Well, nobody was murdered in this house. Nobody died in this house.
They were poisoned in the house.
They were just poisoned over a long period of time.
It's a book.
Poisoned over a long period of time.
Nope.
Okay.
It's all alleged.
That's true. Now that's true. Now it wasn't some type of gruesome type murder.
Well, the husband might have been murdered rather gruesomely on the front lawn with a baseball bat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, again.
There's that.
No.
Would you?
But did he really die?
Would you?
The plot thickens.
Would you live in the Amityville horror house?
No.
Absolutely not.
Murders happened. Years later, people moved in. Supposedly, bizarre things happened when that family moved in. There are people living in the house now say it's perfectly fine.
I would rather live in a house where someone had been murdered than a haunted house.
Haunted.
No way.
But it was haunted because people were murdered in it.
Now I'm going to run down my hallway to get to my bedroom and jump in my bed really quickly because I'm scared of ghosts.
All right. Speaking of...
Some ghosts are nice.
Okay, sorry. Speaking of the haunted mansion.
I do need to make a correction. It says associated with murder per our executive producer, Jim, who said clarify, please. So
yes.
There's a clarification, Jim.
And the people who own it are lovely people, and the house is a lovely house.
I'm sure it is.
And that was a long time. That was 50 years ago.
Unless they give me a great price on it, then I would totally live in River Oaks.
Location. Anyway, your thoughts on any of the stories, topics we have been covering today on the show, give us a call, 713-440-8870. We did say it's National Water a Flower Day, and Frank, still rain going away? So.
Oh, I thought you were going to say water me.
No, Frank, don't
flower
me.
What is happening right now?
The rain is still trying to get out of here. You're absolutely right.
Just wanted a little update
but where it's
there.
raining right along I-10, I bet it's a mess, I-10 East. It really from just outside of the Loop all the way into Liberty and Chambers County, it's a mess. But everywhere else is calming down. The big storms in Galveston have now moved offshore.
Okay, be careful out there for at least a little while more, and then things should be okay for a very nice weekend. Celeste, we're moving on.
That's right. Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Lisa Shumate, who is stepping down and into great adventures as Houston Public Media's Associate Vice President and General Manager. Will chat with us about what's next. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Imagine two friends getting together.
So what's happening in Congress?
Well, this is something that is going to be tough to defend in an election year. And that's assuming it even passes, which it might not.
Imagine you could listen in.
And then what about the Senate? The bills are just rocketing out of the chamber.
Have they gone too far? The House might say, well, wait a minute.
Well, you can. Party Politics with Brandon Rottinghouse and Geronimo Cortina. Fridays at 7:30 p.m. on News 88.7, at 8 on TV8, and on your favorite podcast platforms.
It can be hard to stay informed about what's happening in our city, our state, and across the country. That's why Houston Public Media makes it easier.
Everything you hear on News 88.7 is powered by you, not advertisers. 80% of our funding comes from our Houston community.
That's what makes public media different. It's community funded and always here for you when you need it.
Join that community now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
This week on This American Life, life inside a family group chat. I want to take you to the beach. When? We're thinking either tomorrow or Monday. We need a watermelon. That's the most important thing. You're making conditions as well? The watermelon is more important than you. And then in this group chat, we watch something big, really big, unfold.
This American Life is on Saturday at 11 a.m.
Support comes from Signify Business Cash by Wells Fargo. With this business credit card, cardholders can earn rewards on business purchases with no caps or categories to track. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/signify. Terms apply. Support comes from Volunteer Houston, a program of interfaith ministries, providing opportunities for companies to connect with nonprofits while strengthening employee team building and serving the community. More at imgh.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Lisa Shumate, Houston Public Media's Associate Vice President and General Manager, is on her final lap here. I guess tomorrow is officially her last day, but she wrapped things up mostly on Wednesday. So we thought we'd bring her in here to Hello Houston for our exit interview with you. Lisa, welcome to the program. If you weren't watching, I did a little air quotes. Yeah.
This sounds official.
If you have comments, questions, or just want to share with us, 713-440-8870. Lisa, it's been a run, hasn't it?
It's been an amazing run. Houston Public Media is truly a place where my love of media intersected with my heart because of the fact that the mission.
Right.
So, you know, Frank, I've known Frank since my very first media job here
I
at
know.
KTRK.
I know. We both did some hosting on Good Morning Houston.
We did.
I mean, you've probably known me longer than anybody here.
Well,
I mean, technically.
Proud to be. Proud to. Absolutely. I guess there's no accidents that we wind up across the table together today because I have some great memories from that show. But Houston Public Media in particular, PBS and NPR, and what we try to do and what each of you do every day, I've heard from so many people, you have no idea how important it is, this community radio station is to them.
The sense of balance that I think you brought to this position is that you did come out of talent and then you did have management. Rarely do you have that in leading an organization like this. They know usually the business side. But I guess for you, how did that make you, do you feel a more effective manager having both of those hats you've worn?
Well, I'll tell you what, it goes back a lot further than that. My very first job was answering the phone So every day when I walk through and I see someone at the front desk, I know what they're doing. I know the traffic cop they're playing. And they're answering emails now on top of it too, which we didn't have when I first started. So I've been in every department except engineering throughout my career. So no one would want me in that department. But so I do have an appreciation for each job and how important it is, because we don't do this. Nobody could do this without all the team, all the people, all the disciplines it takes.
Well, drilling down on that, I don't know that I've ever met a talent. And we say it's talent. People may not know.
Well,
that.
I wasn't that talented, clearly. I didn't get to do it that long.
No, you were just that talented.
Right. Well, when I say talent, I mean on-air person. That's what
we refer to that.
That's the nickname for on-air people is talent.
Yeah.
So, but I've never known an on-air person that said, you know what, I want to go be general manager of a TV station. But why did you do that?
Yeah. So you know what, Frank?
And you were talented, Lisa.
Well, thank you so much for that. But when you think about, and this is why representation, what we see when we're young, makes a difference. Mm-hmm. And there was a woman, the first woman anchor a woman in New Orleans, Louisiana. Her name is Angela Hill. And she's you remember Angela Hill? Okay.
WWL, right?
WWL.
Yeah,
she's
she was
retired
terrific.
now. Terrific. She's, I think, retired up east somewhere. Warm, genuine. She went out, did stories in the community, and I said, I want to do that. So I got somebody at WWL to give me a part-time job so that I could go to Loyola University. It was owned by the Jesuits that ran the university. And here I am at a university licensee, again, full circle. Mm-hmm. But so you could go to Loyola tuition-free if you worked full-time at the university. So this wonderful woman, Mickey Wellman was her name, met with me, and I said, I'll do anything. I've got to work. I can't put myself through this expensive private school. I'm one of 4 children. My parents are, putting us through Catholic school, but then we're on our own. Mm-hmm. And so she said, well, there's an opening here in the studio. The guys that I get to do the switchboard never answer the phone. I said, I'll do that. I will be the best switchboard operator you've ever had. So that's how it really started. Yeah. And so, but with the goal of being Angela. All right, so fast forward to being able to work on PM Magazine, lugging cameras around.
Were you a host?
No, I was still in college. So I was like an associate producer, and I had some great bosses, and I was writing all the teases. And I remember turning him in. I was so proud, and he said, these are terrible. I wouldn't watch this. I wouldn't watch this. What are you saying? And so I was teared up. And so this is also what I want people to understand. When you have a boss that's hard on you, they're trying to get you to be better. Mm-hmm. So don't crumble. And I did. I stayed there till like 10 o'clock at night, rewriting them. Mm-hmm. Showed it to him the next day, and he goes, okay, that's better. And you go from there. So I graduate. I get to go in the newsroom. And, that first day comes, because I don't know anything, okay? I've never done this before. And New Orleans, Louisiana is not a little market, and it's a big news market. There's with Louisiana politics, the port, Mardi Gras,
storms,
storms, you name it. It's a big news market. So that day comes where there's a fire and there's no one around. So you get sent out and you learn how to do it. So one day they decided to start a new show called 4:30. They hired consultants to name it. I don't know. And they put it at 4:30. I'm kidding. But, and I got to co-host. And so that's where the anchoring started. Well, then I was married, Celeste, and our son was born. My mother made that look so easy. And I was really overwhelmed and went home for a while to raise William. So when we came to Houston for an opportunity for my husband, he's like 6. And through a project I was working on, making a video, they said, hey, they're looking for somebody at Channel 13 to host Good Morning Houston, and they want somebody with news experience who's also a mom. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, I guess I'd check those 2 boxes, but it had been 5 years since I'd been on the air. The tapes, old hair, old everything. And so they said, well, we could help you do a tape. So I sent it in. And I had dinner with Kim North-Jackson.
Oh, sure.
She's the vice president of programming. She hired me. Yeah. I had dinner with her last night. I said, do you realize, because she wanted to take us out, me and my husband, to celebrate with her husband. I said, do you realize without you, I would never have been in this career, this wonderful Houston career. So anyway, Kim hired me to host.
And that
when
was
they
with
did,
Don Nelson.
That
People
was
will
with Don
remember it,
Nelson.
right?
Don Nelson, my favorite TV husband ever. He is just so funny. Well, when they hired me, they said, now look, there's a lot of these new different shows coming out. Sally Jesse Raphael, Phil Donahue, Rosie O'Donnell. And, we don't know, how sitting on the sofa talking about local communities is going to compete. But you've got news background, we'll figure something out. So sure enough, the show, after about 18 months, now I had my second child, my daughter. It was so much easier the second time around.
It really is.
It is.
Everything is.
And anyway, that's what happened. I went into the newsroom. So I was telling Kim last night, I said, by this time I'm like in my mid-30s, still very young, of course, but not really willing to move around to keep doing the anchoring thing. And so I said to myself, okay, so you wanted a career in media. Do you have to be that specific that it has to be anchoring? What else could I do? Kim and other managers there gave me the opportunity to try producing, to try doing community events. I kind of got interested in sales and thought, well, what if we got sponsors for these blood drives, food drives, and we did a baby shower? Then it would ensure that they would continue. And so that's how I got into sales. I was successful raising money. When you do that, they're like, you need to be in management. And that's how it happened, Frank.
Wow.
And it's incredible because I have to say, as like a younger woman, I look to you, Lisa, as that inspiration. And then when I listen to your story and hear that you took pauses, the things that people tell women you can't do, you shouldn't do. If you don't come in as a talent, you're not talent. If you are talent, you can't be management. And so to sit here across from a woman who has paved a way, who has done it, as somebody who came in here at Houston Public Media as a freelance reporter, I look at you and I think how inspiring that you built a career that also allowed you to be a mom, a wife, a daughter, a friend. And so I'm truly inspired. And I would like to know what you would tell women in any place within their career. What advice would you give women today, now, right today?
Celeste, you make some great points. And when I did make the decision to stay home with William, a lot of people said, what are you doing? How can you figure this out? And at the time, I never felt like I was closing a door. But you see, so there's the answer right there. You make these decisions and you see the opportunity and the timing. It's your life. And friends and family, well-intentioned as they may be, are often the worst source of advice. So if you just always listen to your heart and you believe in yourself and you go, no, I have options. This is the chapter I'm writing today because I knew I could never go back and recapture those years. And I figured I would figure something out. So never feel like when you need to make a change that it's irreversible. It is absolutely not.
Well, you created work-life balance before it was even a phrase.
Yes.
I mean, which was a brave thing to do. But to say, look, I want to work, but I got to have a life. This is how I'm going to do it.
Well, thank you for that. At the time when William was born, and he was a handful, I didn't feel like I was doing anything other than, surviving it, really. And not because of him, but just because of my own. No new parent that I've ever met has said, oh, yeah, I've got this. I've figured it out. It's totally what I expected.
Owner's manual right there.
No one said ever. No one said ever, I figured this out.
I do want to read this YouTube comment. Larry Dudek says, Lisa, thank you for all you've done and accomplished with and for HPM and the Houston area. All the best, Larry Dudek.
Thank you, Larry.
Yes,
He's
I wanted
such
to make
a
sure you
kind
said that.
person and supporter. But thank you so much. And I just want to say to the work-life balance, think about it now. It's really also integrated. And so you just have to take it a day at a time. And I also, because I worked, had help. So do not think for 1 minute I didn't have sitters. I didn't have family support. I did. But every day I felt so lucky to get up and do something I loved and believed in.
You made the change and you came over to public media. And over the last, I guess it's 14 years. Am I doing my math right? I'm curious how you've seen that landscape change to what you were walking into, to what you're saying so long to this week?
Number one is the technology that has changed because it had to. Ernie, because of where just even it was 15 years ago, and why I'm so optimistic about the future is you may remember there used to be these things called PTFP grants, which helped stations, in addition to the community grant, which is 10% of our budget. There was another in this market, maybe $200,000-300,000 that came in each year to keep up with technology, because we've seen this confluence of broadcast and IT come together. Those grants went away. And a lot of stations fell behind in the deferred maintenance, in the required maintenance, in the upgrades, in the replacements. And you can, when I walked in 2011, it felt like 1990. The beautiful building, right? As far as broadcast goes, to have a building that was built in 2020, that's pretty new. And so the building was great, but a lot of the equipment was old. And we knew this coming from commercial, what was happening to consolidate and basically take the big capital costs and turn them into operational costs. And so that's what we had to do. And Ernie, that's forging change. So what's changed is, I think the leaders now in the industry are more accepting and staying with and ahead of the technology. What hasn't changed is the mission.
Well, and to be clear, commercial television's budget is 10 times what public television's budget is. So the challenges are there. That's why we have pledge drives. but those challenges are there. How have you met those challenges?
A day at a time.
Yeah.
And with very talented and dedicated people, including, the Houston Public Media Foundation Board, the University of Houston, who have been supportive. We don't get direct financial support from the university. It's all from the community, businesses, individuals, foundations, and then the grant. But you do it a day at a time and you create a vision. So the first vision was we have 3 towers and transmitters in 2 different locations. How can we bring all that together, improve our service? It was getting kind of, on a hot Friday, Josh Adams, our incoming, it is not unusual. He would get a call, or I would get a call from him. Okay, so we're off the air because the thing is overheated down at the transmitter. Sydney's on his way. God bless Sydney. Everybody, if you haven't heard Sydney's name, and we'll get it. And with a hope and a prayer, because it was so hot, those transmitters in the middle of a prairie, right? That we would get back on the air. So of course it had to be replaced. And so you go out, you tell the story, you create the vision, you show the efficiencies. If we get this one place, get them all in one, brand new generators, and we've got brand new generator here at the building. Brand new. We're ready for storm season, Frank.
Well, it's interesting because
we're ready, Frank.
We talk about the costs and all of that and how much lower our budget is and such, and you talk about the tower and such. I can't help but also think, but when the city is under all that has happened, people tune to us because we're still broadcasting. The other commercial, and with all that extra money, they're coming over here. They're using our air to broadcast. We are there for everyone.
Literally coming over
yes,
here. Can we talk about 2017 and Hurricane Harvey? And do you know one of the nicest comments I got on LinkedIn, because I had to share the pictures from our little beautiful celebration the other day, so wonderful, was thank you for saving us. It wasn't me. Again, our building was equipped. We were ready. That's what we do. And we kept KHOU on the air for 18 months until they could find a new place to go. Yeah. David and Goliath, huh?
Yeah, which is interesting in today's news when you hear all of this talk about what does public media give to a community that commercial can't. We kept them on the air. Plus, we kept ourselves on the air. Plus, if you had a radio, even a crank one, you could still get updates on storms in the thick of it all. And so public media really is more than just the programs you may like on the air. It feeds an entire community.
When the chips are down, we're there for each other, our fellow media partners, and for the city.
And the Harris County Office of Emergency Management, I will say that too. They count on Houston Public Media to get their word out.
That's right.
So talking about getting other words out, so how often do you get confused for Kris Jenner these days?
Oh my gosh. Okay,
talk to us about your viral moment.
Oh my gosh. And it came left as fast as it came.
Oh no, we still remember.
Let me tell you this. This is, okay, so guys, you got to hear this story. I'm talking to our listeners right now. Victoria Cordova, who's on our board, was working with me, and she goes, Lisa, you're not going to believe this. On Instagram, it's blowing up right now of an interview with Beyonce. Beyonce's like 12. On Good Morning Houston, everybody says it's Kris Jenner, but I think it's you. So I'm like, are you kidding me? So I look at this, and sure enough, Matthew Knowles, her father, posts these things, right? And, of course, the interview with Beyonce, she was on there. And I remember, and you can find it if you want to, but basically I said, well, you know, you're already performing. What do you think it takes to be famous? And she goes, well, I just think, literally, and you can hear her saying this, I just think if you work real hard and you practice, you will be. So this beautiful international star that we know was working every day since she could wear high heels, you know, and dance in them, right? And even before. Well, anyway, so the speculation was it was Kris Jenner. And so I think it was me or somebody else who follows Good Morning Houston said, no, that's not Kris Jenner, that's Lisa Shumate. I had my hair cut real short. Well, I
could see it.
Listen, it totally went dead. That was it. I mean,
and you're playing it right now on YouTube.
This
We had it
story
up on
was
YouTube.
covered by Entertainment Tonight, the Daily Mail, People Magazine, Cosmopolitan, Perez Hilton, Yahoo. Even the Daily Mail in the UK had a story about the internet is convinced Kris Jenner is interviewing.
We need to get Kris
Beyonce.
Jenner and Lisa together for
I've
lunch
never
to
seen
clear
them in
this.
the same room together. Maybe there's something else here.
I don't know. I think I changed my hair more than she does, but you know, who knows?
I would say, looking at this time here at Houston Public Media, what would you say are some of your biggest highlights and some of the things that you're most proud of?
Wow, that's
besides going viral, of course.
Well, I know, isn't that crazy? But well, I'm really most proud of how collectively where we are today as an organization, multi-generational workforce, more local content, more service to the community, this beautiful studio. I mean, what Hello Houston is doing now in the whole new sphere of the internet and YouTube. I mean, we're on YouTube, okay? Yeah. But while still staying true to the mission, both for PBS and kids and the dedication to curriculum-based children's educational programming, to the news and information, you know, that you can trust and rely on. So I can't really say it's any one moment, because everyone who's come in the door and even have left have done something special towards where we are today.
Yeah. So we talk about all of the past. There's still a rich future ahead for you.
Yes.
What's going to get you up Monday morning?
Well, I have a lot of things that get me up every day. And one of them is I have a wonderful family. So, you know, I started out talking about my family. My husband and I have been married 42 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Wow. We have a son who is married, lives here, to Jacqueline. They have 2 little boys, Luke and Tom.
Oh, Grandma.
And
what do they call you?
What do they call you? They call me Rita Bear.
Oh, Rita Bear.
And they call me Rita Bear because when Luke was born, I made a little story. You know how you can write those stories? Yeah. And Rita was just always a name I loved. And so I did a whole thing about, Rita Bear, and then my husband is Chip Bear, and then Jacqueline's parents are Care Bear and Pops Bear. So anyway, that's what they call me. I also have my daughter. I told you about my daughter. Right. She just got married last August, and they live in Chicago, but she's trying to make her way back to Houston.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So that gets me up first and foremost, right? Because that love and support is just amazing. Work-wise, what gets me up is leadership. You can say, I've been in media my whole career, or you can say, I've been in leadership in the media industry, and both would be true. And the second was kind of the unintentional part, because I didn't know it would wind up like that. So I want to continue to do that work, and I'm starting a company called Maximum Q, and it's because it takes more than EQ and IQ, it takes Maximum Q. And so I hope to support new emerging leaders, people in their 40s and 50s coming into power, support them to really feel empowered as a leader and make meaningful differences.
Before one last question, taking you back to the very beginning of the interview, we talked about how you worked in all different aspects of this job before you got into leadership. Do you think that today that harms leaders when they haven't walked in the trenches? Is that something you think needs to be there for really strong, good leadership, or is there other elements?
So as a coach, I would tell you there is no one way. Leadership is in your heart. And there are many people who are successful going from industry to industry. It's about the humility that you approach that job and saying, hey, I've never done that before. The curiosity, tell me, what's that like? That is more important than whether you've been the one that's actually been, with the hammer and the nails and the screwdriver in your hands doing the particular job.
Well said. Josh Adams, a name you know.
Yes.
This is a good way to wrap this up. Says Lisa's leadership has been transformational for UH and the city of Houston.
Oh, thank you, Josh.
Well,
thank you, Josh.
Houston's a better place because of you. There you go.
Thank you. I'm sending a big group hug to you and all of Houston. And Josh, thank you for that wonderful comment. I'm so excited about his leadership coming into being.
Well, we're going to hug as soon as this interview's over, which will bring this full circle, because the very first day you came into the station, you came over to me. I had 2 broken hands from a cycling accident, and you gave me a hug. That was your first greeting to me. And so we'll have gone full circle with a hug at the beginning and a hug at the end there.
Lisa, if somebody would like to learn more about this new business that you have, is there a place where people can go to reach out to you if they want some coaching or mentorship?
Well, thank you for that. My website is still in the test mode right now, meaning not all the links may work, but it's MaximumQ.com.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be very inspired and want to learn more from you.
Thank you all so much for what you're doing every day. I watch you on YouTube, and if I can't listen to you live, I love you all.
Thank you.
And I wish nothing but the best for you.
You too. Back
Lisa
at you.
Shumate, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston. After the break, we'll be talking about our last-minute plans, where, when, and who else to see. Stay with us as News 88.7 continues on Hello Houston.
Listen in as life and music intersect on Sean Colvin, Inside These Four Walls.
So I've just been getting my footing in a lot of areas, and there's a big shift.
It's a look behind the creative process as the 3-time Grammy Award winner crafts her first album in 5 years.
If I'm too literal, I have too strong a grip on what it is I want to say, it's stilted, it doesn't work.
Listen for Sean Colvin, Inside These Four Walls. Saturday evening at 7 on News 88.7.
The internet can make anyone an artist these days, but is any of the art good?
Most Americans think the 2020s are the worst decade in a century for music, movies, fashion, TV, and sport. A number of other factors made me think that it was time to really dive in.
Why innovation may be slowing down. That's next time on Think.
You can hear Think. It's coming up tonight at 10 p.m.
Houston Public Media provides a free, essential, and trusted public service to everyone in Southeast Texas. The generosity of our Affinity Council Committee enables us to bring inspiration, insight, and connection through public media. Adrian Snahill Amin, Carol Butler, Marcia and Tom Fashionbauer, Cecilia Kamer, Itelka Prather, and Terry Thomas. Thank you. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Upreach Learning, presenting a summer academic boot camp for high school students to prepare for core STEM classes or the SAT exam. Camps begin June 2nd. Registration info at upreachlearning.org. Support comes from Rice University's Baker Institute, offering a forum for informed, nonpartisan, civic-minded engagement on the most pressing issues facing Texas, the U.S., and the world. More information about becoming a member is at bakerinstitute.org/membership.
Support Houston Public Media.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
It's Friday.
I gotta say, I always love chatting with Lisa.
She
is
so much
incredible.
fun. Well, you can also tell how she was successful both in the management side of things and as the talent side of things. Her personality and her her truth comes out in the way she expresses herself. And don't get me wrong, there have been times when her truth has not set so perfectly with me. There are issues. She has managed this organization